big straw hat over your eyes you'll never see. The circumstance making you frown if you just push your eyes under the ground.
My most vivid recollections of both you and your brother are when you at the picnic. We all had marvelous times. It meant a great deal, you know, to the employees there. Little kids would have their picture taken with Lucy and or Desi, and they were, and we had softball games, and they were really family picnics. And you and your brother and your grandmother, and we were all like one big family. And then after a while, unfortunately, that's when they gave up on it because there was just too much work and time became much more valuable.
Are you now, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
The McCarthy era was a disgraceful chapter in the history of this country. And to have to associate her with it was just ridiculous.
There was a blind item in Walter Winchell's column. What top TV, red-haired, median to the card-carrying communist?
I certainly didn't think it was me. And the phone rang. And Jesse said, I'd expect some people about 1 o'clock. And this was 9. I said, what are you getting, a party? And he said, no, honey. You're in trouble.
Oh, I'll never forget that as long as I live. It was 72 hours without sleep.
Desi told me the story about Lucy's grandfather who had raised her. He was a socialist, you know, and he used to bang on us all the time about, you know, you got to register communist and you got to register.
So they went down and registered, and that was it. And, of course, it all backfired years later.
But it was one of those dreadful and untrue, vicious attacks. Many of my friends in radio never worked again.
It created a problem with me because I got fired from Lockheed Aircraft because of it.
There were editorials, and by God, there were letters by the thousands that came in. We got wires all day long.
Supporting
her. Oh, yeah, absolutely. If she's a red, I'm going to Russia.
Well, one of the funniest things that happened was that, you remember, Larry Parks had just before that actually been dragged up before the House Un-American Activities and very definitely associated with a communist group or whatever they found him to be guilty of. And so he was blacklisted, absolutely blacklisted. And when this thing hit, we were all out at the ranch, and phones were ringing, and there's a knock on the door. And she goes to open the front door, and it's Larry Parks. And if there was anyone she didn't need at that moment to come into her life and console her, it was Larry. She said, oh, God, Larry, I love you, but go away. I mean...
They had this famous press conference before the show one night, and Desi told the story about the grandfather and everything else.
She didn't even know who the mayor of Los Angeles was.
How did you get the
The only thing red about her was her hair. And even that was not legitimate.
The whole thing blew over just like that. Say the House Un-American Activities Committee really clamped down on Lucy. She's been out of the business, really. Been out of the business.
We're just going along as we please, breezing along.
So they breezed right along from television straight into the movies. And they had another big hit with the Long, Long Trailer.
First you dice the carrot, slice the onion, chop the pepper fine. Then you sift the flour, grind the meat to salt and pepper freely. Then you add some garlic. Oh, not too much now, just the soup, son.
Occasionally she would have thoughts about the script, some doubts.
And she would say, this doesn't work.
And Desi would say, now, honey, everything's going to be fine. And he said that was good enough for her.
Lucy told me many times what a genius Desi was when it came to the use of props. It's a rare talent.
Because he had a great sense of comedy. His wife did not have.
Lucy didn't know what was funny in concept. When she did it, she was the greatest in the world.
What's the matter, honey? Can you sleep?
We've been crying his name for years. Give him credit for comedy and for organization, for everything.
But he never lost sight of the fact that Lucy was the big, big talent, his wife. And once we were backstage talking, and Lucy was nearby, and the cables were out there, and Lucy started to walk and tripped on a cable. And when Desi saw her, he quick grabbed us by the shoulders and said, "Amigos, anything happens to her, we're all in the shrimp business."
Desi already was a star in everybody else's mind except Desi Arnaz.
Time magazine asked me one time, if you had to split the percentage of the success of I Love Lucy between yourself and the actors and the actresses and the writers, how would you do it? Who would you give the credit? I said, well, give Lucy 90% and split the rest between us.
Lucy and Desi were the two funniest, most wonderful people when they were playing the Ricardos, and they still have the world's most loved television show, probably never go off the air. And yet it wasn't all there is.
I remember they always went to Del Mar every summer, and Desi loved it. They rented a house up the beach from us.
You could go out and swim in the morning and get dressed for the races by 2 o'clock.
He would bet very heavily, always at the big $100 windows, and she would bet on every horse in the race.
And I remember we used to sit with Jimmy Durante, and one of the things I can remember is how big his nose was.
But I would always go down the beach to where Desi and Jimmy were fishing.
They were very, very good friends. You remember the one day we were playing on the beach in Del Mar, and Mother, she said, you know something about, get those kids, and they were arguing about the fact that he's not speaking Spanish to us. And all we knew was that we were dragged off of the beach in the middle of a beautiful day and shoved into the shade, and Dad went into the kitchen and came back out with butter and bread, and he sat down on this little table, and we were sitting there like this little, we were like 4 and 5, and he took off his shoe and he said, "Zapato, zapato, say, zapato." And he said, "Say, zapato."
Do I have to really
yes,
say it right
zapato.
now?
And then he picked up the butter and he said, "Mantequilla, mantequilla, say, mantequilla." And then he picked up the bread and went, "Pan, pan, say,
Pan,
pan,
pan."
pan. Got the zapato, zapato, mantequilla, mantequilla, pan. I go play.
Go play.
And that was it. And we never had another lesson.
Palm Springs was a very valuable getaway for both Lucy and Desi. For Desi particularly because of the club and golf.
We had 3 beautiful homes. We had expensive vacations. My parents' success brought us a lifestyle that most people can only dream of.
When Desi was around, there was a lot more money, it seemed like. There were big parties.
At all of our parties, there were costume parties. We were doctors, Indians,
Cowboys.
nurses.
Right.
I was a king a lot of the time.
They'd get props and set pieces from the studio, so it really looked like a town.
Or like it was a carnival, and we could be clowns or stuff like that.
Real little Ferris wheel they had.
Oh yeah.
I never got the sense that this was a